I wasted 2 hours of my sister's time because she refused to listen to me. When I was younger, around a decade ago, I used to love two things: cars and roads. Still to this day I love cars. But the way I loved roads was through maps. My favorite activity when I was bored was to go on the Maps app and look at the highways that surrounded my area. My oldest sister at the time was the only sibling of mine who had a license. One summer day, she was bored and decided to take me and her boyfriend to an amusement park an hour and a half away from home. The story begins on the way back. My father needed the car at the car dealership as it was scheduled to have routine maintenance done. The next morning, my father sent her the address of the dealership and requested that she drop the car off, and he will go and pick us up at the dealer. Now that the context is out of the way, here is where my sister made a mistake. She typed in the address and clicked on the nearest place with that road. The issue is that the nearest place with that road was a town going an hour in the opposite direction. She gets onto a road I will call State Route 100. This intersects with Interstate 1, which we were supposed to get onto. When she passes the highway, this following interaction ensues. Me: you were supposed to make that right. Her: that's not what the map says. 5 minutes later, I say again. Me: we are heading in the wrong direction. This does not go home. Her: maybe it's an alternate route that's faster? Quote. Me: I don't think a road going in the opposite direction is fast. She cut me off. Her: now annoyed, listen, I'm going to focus on what the map says, not on you. Just stop already. And with that, I followed her instruction. After all, why would I complain on going on a road I have never been on? From what I remember after that, we stopped for gas about half an hour in. My sister was still convinced we were going in the right direction. But why should I correct her? She is listening to the map after all. The fallout: we hit an expressway and my sister is convinced we made it home and is pleased with herself. This was until an overhead sign said, Town B Regional Airport. 1 mile. At this point, my sister realized her mistake. She starts freaking out and saying, I didn't know this road went here. I was following the map. Ah, why didn't you tell me we were going the wrong way? Quote. I was scared of her getting mad at me. So I just said, after you told me to stop, I just stopped paying attention to where you were going. She eventually pulled into a gas station and saw where she set her GPS to. After correcting her mistake, we head the opposite direction. Although the car ride was rather silent, we eventually see signs for the amusement park we started at, because she had to turn left at the road I originally told her to turn at. And that is how I turned a drive supposed to be an hour and a half into a 3.5 hour journey. Years have passed since this happened, and I told my father, who thought it was hysterical. I often consider telling my sister, but we sadly rarely speak anymore. Thank you for reading. Have a happy new year. You did what you were told to do. This is on her. If this anecdote is representative of the norm, I'd say it's pretty obvious why the two of you rarely speak. And I'd venture that while it may make you sad, it also makes your life more peaceful. This is the type of story that puts our malicious compliance on the map. I'm glad that I happily admit I couldn't find my way out of a paper bag if it were open at both ends. I often consider telling my sister, but we sadly rarely speak anymore. Sounds like the perfect conversation starter. Am I allowed to talk to you yet? We made it home from the amusement park a long time ago. Beautiful. I got lost one time before Google Maps was big and we didn't have data on our phones. I had to pick up my brother from a fair at a private high school that wasn't near our house. I'd only ever been out that way when my parents were driving. They had turned the road I came in on into a one-way due to traffic. Finally pulled over at a gas station and asked how to get to the road the school was off. He'd never heard of it. Finally called my dad on speaker and had him talk us back to the main road. My brother was around 45 minutes away and we'd been lost for about 20 minutes. Forget why my dad couldn't go, but 99% sure my mom had been drinking. The way I loved roads was through maps. I used to read Hagstrom's Pocket Street Atlas of NYC for pleasure when I was a kid. For anyone familiar with Victoria, Australia, I ran into a couple of girls in Sale trying to get to Venus Bay. From Melbourne, rolling on the floor laughing, similar amount of time wasted and a pretty impressive argument about whose fault it was. My son also loves cars, roads, and maps. Back in the early days of GPS, before it was on our phones, we quickly learned to trust him over Garmin. I still clearly remember the second time we traveled to a place 2 hours from our home. When we got to the road we were going to, GPS told us to turn left onto it. He told us to turn right. Yeah, he was right. His grandma lived 3 states away and he could recite every road name, number we took to get there, including if they were US or state routes. You can't help people who don't want help. Not your fault, entirely hers. She refused to listen to you and you let her have her way. She refused to speak to you or she went mute. And Op lived happily ever after. The end. Smiling face. I'm old enough to have enjoyed paper maps and being the navigator on trips. I plotted the route and alternate routes depending on traffic. Still can't get used to GPS calling out directions to me. Just get me a damned map.
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. Epicaricast is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.